Well, hello and a very warm welcome to this episode of Building Business Capability Conference Extra. BBC Conference Extra is a bit of bonus content that streams live during some of the breaks. Well, I say streams live, you'll probably notice this isn't the real Adrian presenting this segment. And you might have seen on the schedule that the real Adrian is just finishing up his presentation in another virtual room at the moment. So just for this first few minutes while Adrian gets mic'd up and ready, you're stuck with the virtual Adrian. Although I have to say, the production crew here say the virtual Adrian is far easier to work with than the real Adrian. And what a fantastic lineup of content we have for you today, viewer. In this episode, we're going to be talking about product management and also we're going to be talking about digital transformation. So let's move straight on to our first segment. I'm sure digital transformation is a phrase that you've heard a lot in your work. I know certainly it's a phrase I hear a lot with the clients I work with. And I'm really pleased to say that Rochelle Tan, who is a digital consultant at Chevron, who's speaking later today, agreed to give us a bit of an insight into what digital transformation can mean. So Rochelle, over to you.
Hi, my name's Rochelle Tan, and I'm here to talk about digital transformation. Today, large enterprises are forced to operate like startup companies. The traditional way of build and they will come strategy is no longer effective. To survive or stay relevant in this digital age of speed, agility, and customer centricity, large enterprises must focus their efforts on work and only work that deliver the highest customer value within the shortest amount of time. The only way to sustainably achieve this is through a digital transformation that drives business agility. Now, every enterprise has its own definition of digital transformation. It usually involves some form of technology transformation, like replatformization. In Chevron, we migrated and implemented thousands of apps in the cloud. Some were legacy applications migrated from an on-prem environment to the cloud, while others were greenfield applications built in the cloud. A digital transformation may also include a shift in process or approach on how the work is being done, such as moving from a waterfall methodology to an agile methodology. It could also involve new ways of gauging or measuring success by putting more emphasis on outcome-based instead of output-based metrics. To answer the question, are we delivering what our customers really need? You may be asking yourself, okay, now I know why companies have to go through a digital transformation and the types of digital transformations. Tell me, how do I implement a digital transformation? Based on my experience and research, there is a fundamental element that is essential to a digital transformation initiative. It is a simple concept, but it is usually the most complex element to change or adapt to. I am talking about the mindset shift. A mindset shift is essential because it drives the way people think, operate, and behave. It is the foundation to a successful digital transformation in order to achieve business agility. This mindset shift does not happen overnight. Oh no. Nor is it automatically internalized from attending, say, a training session on the said topic. Just like learning a new skill, such as learning a new language or learning how to play a musical instrument, it takes a combination of training, practice, and having a nurturing environment to cultivate the learning experience. Here are a few factors that has helped us in Chevron. Getting leadership sponsorship was paramount to our initiative. Digital transformation does not happen overnight. Leaders who understand or support the transformation recognize that people, team members, and including leaders need time to grasp what this new way of working is all about. Recognizing this new mindset must be embodied by every member of the enterprise. Yes, I said every member, team members, leaders, including external partners who closely collaborate with the enterprise. In the beginning, it was also beneficial to get help from external experts who have solid knowledge and experience on digital transformation. Then slowly, we created internal expertise within the organization to establish process and standards that made sense for Chevron's needs. Understanding the agile approach was also helpful. Getting everything right the first time to implement, especially new technology, is unrealistic. We implement innovative services and products by iterating on the work, learning from failures, and getting new information that we leverage in order to make things better on the subsequent iteration. We also provide a nurturing environment for learning. We created an incubator program to allow new team members and teams to experience this new way of working while building new solutions in a controlled environment. We try to keep this environment relatively free from distractions or influence of the conventional approach. As the customer needs change, so must the enterprise. But with the right mindset, the enterprise will have the business agility to adapt to market and environment change to deliver the highest customer value in the most cost-effective way. Again, this is Rochelle Tan on digital transformation. Thank you.
Fantastic. So some really, really good points there for us to take away. I was writing down, I particularly found that digital transformation, it's the digital transformation that drives business agility and that focus on value. I was writing things down like outcome-based, not output-based metrics, and that mindset shift being so essential and that it doesn't happen overnight. So a huge thanks to Rochelle there for giving that really interesting presentation. Now, if you were watching this presentation from the very, very beginning, you will have had the pleasure of seeing a virtual version of me, because I've literally just been speaking at a regular conference session, which ended at 25 past the hour, and this started at 25 past the hour. So the so the Blackmetric graphics team, with some help from Grant Wright, who drew a picture of me, created an animated version of me, and everyone says it's easier to work with than the real one. So there we go. If you didn't see that, you might want to check the YouTube link and have a bit of a laugh at it. So do remember that this conference, as always, is an extremely social conference. I know there's a lot of networking happening on the conference app. If you haven't checked out the community section of that, you'll want to do that. You're missing out if you haven't logged on to that element of it yet. Also remember, there's an extra incentive to get your social media game on, because if you use the official conference hashtag, which is BBCConf, that's BBCConf with an F, every time you use it, you're actually in with the chance of winning a competition. So how would you like to win a free ticket to the BBC 2021? As Matthew mentioned in the opening presentation, that's probably going to be in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but who knows? Well, every time you either use Twitter or LinkedIn using that hashtag, that will count as one entry. So why not, tweet a picture of yourself enjoying the conference, or, tweet your biggest learning, or if you've made a mind map, take a picture of it. Sharing really is caring. Also remember that because this is a live show, you can have shout outs read out. All you need to do if you want a shout out is go to the URL shoutout.link. That is shoutout.link, and we'll cover as many shout outs as we can as the episodes progress. So moving on to our next topic. One topic that's really, really tricky, that there are lots of questions about, is the difference between and the contrast between product and project management. I'm really pleased to say that Kent McDonald is joining us today. Kent is product manager and writer at KBP Media. He's given and is giving a number of presentations, but particularly at 9 a.m. on Thursday, so tomorrow, is doing a practitioner chat, which is business analysts are product people too. If you haven't checked out Kent's books and his blog, be sure to do that. The blog and his books are fantastic. So Kent, thank you very much for taking time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Adrian. I appreciate it.
Cool. So Kent, we hear a lot about the product owner role, particularly in agile approaches such as Scrum. What would you say the difference is between product ownership on the one hand and product management on the other?
A lot of that depends on who you ask, actually. I find that people from the product management community would argue that product ownership is really kind of just a subset of what all they do that's mostly focused on working directly with the team. So in a lot of those cases, that if you have both of those roles, and there would be some that would argue that you shouldn't, if you have both those roles, usually the product manager is out there kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in the external environment, understanding what their customers are needing, and the product owner is spending most of their time working directly with the team that's developing whatever solution they're putting together. People on the agile side of the fence would say, well, no, product owner is really doing all that stuff, but we only talk about the stuff that's important to Scrum. So I tend to go more for what the product community says, that basically product ownership as it's defined in Scrum is a lot about how you work with the development team and the product team putting the solution together.
Fantastic. Interesting that you mentioned that view that the product manager has a sort of an external view. So would you say that with putting that lens on it, that's more of a strategic, outward-looking role? Is that fair to say?
It can be, certainly, in a lot of cases. So the product managers in those situations, and you're going to usually see this kind of set up in more of a organization that whatever the team is building is actually the product that the company is selling. That the product manager is really trying to, does have that strategic view, and they're really trying to nail down what problem it is that they're trying to solve with the product. Product owners in those situations do tend to be a little bit more, if you want to use strategic versus tactical, they can tend to be a little bit more tactical and more solution focused.
Yeah. Which is an interesting segue, actually, Kent, because I have to say that almost every organization I've worked with, and this might just be because of the industries I've worked in and the size of the organizations, but almost without exception, I can think of just a couple of exceptions. They were set up to deliver change through projects. And the only way you could actually get funding was like you had to have a project. Do you think like product management and product ownership can work in a project environment?
They do have some definite conflicts when you're trying to do that, and a couple of reasons there. One of it is what you mentioned is that the funding mechanism is completely different. So with project orientation, is you got to gather up a bunch of work together and hope you have enough work together to justify going out and actually doing some stuff. Whereas a more of a product mindset, you're saying is we're going to treat these applications and systems as assets that we know we need to continue working on and maintaining and updating for whatever we need to do to make sure we're either maintaining competitive advantage, closing parity gaps, what have you. So the funding actually ends up becoming more of, we're going to actually fund the team, and then those folks are going to be the ones figuring out makes the most sense to work on right now. Whereas the team gets put together whenever you have a big enough chunk of work together in the project mindset.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting, and I'm thinking about how agility fits into that, and lots of interesting sort of discussion points there about because a project, like a project mindset, is a particular mindset, isn't it? And it sort of implies a fixed destination and a fixed budget, which I suppose is quite challenging in a product mindset.
Yeah, those are two. I don't know if they're diametrically opposed, but they are two conflicting perspectives on things, and both areas have places where they are applicable and where they're not. I would suggest if you're talking software, a product mindset is probably going to end up being more effective for you in the long run than a project mindset.
Fantastic, fantastic. So if someone is moving into product management, what tools or techniques would you recommend they look at? And I wonder whether you could perhaps, briefly describe a couple of your favorites.
Well, so some of my favorites actually end up being very similar to business analysis techniques. So one of the things that I like to go back to a lot is having frameworks that give you the right set of questions to ask. So one of my favorites set of questions came from Marty Kagan. He called it the opportunity assessment, where you have a set of 10 questions where you're trying to nail down, what problem is that we're trying to solve, and a variety of other questions getting down to, is this problem worth solving? Should we go ahead and do this? And that's really, again, trying to focus primarily on the problem. And that's one of the reasons why I would argue, as I'm going to talk about tomorrow in the practitioner chat, the BAs are product people too, because they're targeting the same type of question. Another product management tool that I find quite helpful are all those things where you're trying to get a better understanding of the customers. And when I say customers, I'm talking about the people that pay your money or pay your organization money for products or services, or get products and services from your organization. So the folks that are external. So things like empathy maps and understanding their customer journey are all great techniques for that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I saw there on the Hoover app in like the community section, the message boards, there's a really quite vibrant discussion happening around customer journey mapping as well. So it's clearly quite a hot topic at the conference as well. So without giving too much away from the sorts of things that you've talked about and are going to talk about at the conference, because I know you're involved in a number of sessions, could you share like one tip or takeaway that you think you'd really like people to take away from this conference with a sort of product context?
I would, can I go two?
Yeah, please.
So it's kind of these are kind of my a couple of my things that I kind of use as guiding principles. I actually have 5, but I'm gonna narrow it down to 2. One of them is that it's very important that as you're determining how the work you're doing is successful and how you're progressing on things, it's important to look at that from a outcome perspective. Are we satisfying the needs that we set out to solve? But also keeping in mind that in order to do that, you are going to have to produce some outputs. You just don't want to produce an overbearing number of outputs. So if you understand the need you're trying to satisfy, that can actually help you determine which outputs you do provide, which outputs you don't provide. So that's the first one. The second one is that throughout everything you're doing, figure out how you can approach it by getting as small a feedback cycle as possible. So do something, get it out there, see what the results are, learn from that, adjust, and move forward at the next time you do it. So no more doing all of our analysis at the very beginning. Rather, we want to spread it out throughout the entire effort so that we can learn from going through the entire process.
Fantastic. Again, as you're speaking there, Ken, that's striking me as fitting really well with the sort of business agility and organizational agility movement about sensing, making a decision, responding, seeing how it works, then adjusting and adapting. So do you see those two movements, the kind of product movement and the business and organizational agility movements, do you see them as kind of connected?
If they're not connected, they at least come from the same underlying philosophy, I would say. And probably where the difference is you see the product approach happen much more in software companies and organizations that produce software as their product. You see business agility much more in those larger corporates that software isn't necessarily their own product. So financial services, insurance, things like that. But they're both trying to get to the same thing, where we need to make sure that we're constantly learning and using that learning to head in the right direction.
Yeah. Back to organizational learning, which is so crucial and a tricky one to address. So Ken, I am absolutely certain that people want to know more about what you do. They'll want to stay in touch. They'll want to follow you. How can people find out more about your work and follow you?
So a couple good places to do that. Best place is my website, kbp.media. So that I have a lot of resources out there for product people that are working inside organizations, which I would say would be most of the folks here at the conference. LinkedIn is another great place to look me up, or failing everything else, just reach out to me on the Whova app while we're at the conference.
Yeah. Fantastic, Ken. Well, thank you for taking the time out. Really, really thought-provoking chat. So, well, fantastic. I'm sure I'll catch you somewhere else at the conference.
All right. Thanks a lot, Adrian. Good talking to you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye. Fantastic. Well, I think you'll agree that was just a really, really thought-provoking, interesting chat with Kent there. And I would absolutely recommend that you go and check out Kent's website. As he mentioned, it's kbp.media. If you hit the blog button, there's a goldmine of really, really practical blogs, often with diagrams. And, you know, I read them, and they're the kind of things you read them and you think, wow, I can kind of put this into practice straight away. And do check out Kent's books as well. They're really, really practical, really, really well worth taking a look at. So, also remember that Kent is on at 9 a.m. tomorrow with Business Analysts Are Product People Too. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this session. Just another couple of quick reminders. Do remember that if you want to have a shout out read live on air, just type the URL shoutout.link into your browser bar. Because of the logistics of this session with me dashing from one to the other, if you have submitted a shout out recently, it will get read out in the next session. And do remember, keep your social media gloat on. Remember, use the official conference hashtag BBCConf. That's BBCConf with an F. And you could be in with the chance of winning a prize. One lucky winner will win a free 3-day ticket to the Building Business Capability Conference 2021. With that in mind, if you do like competitions, also check out the sponsors booths. Like again, earlier today I was looking through. There's free stuff to download on some of the sponsors booths, which is pretty awesome. But there's also a whole bunch of competitions. I mean, just some of the ones I wrote down were Mega International has a Bose SoundLink Bluetooth speaker. Irwin has a Bose wireless headphones. Bose is a great brand, isn't it? Netmind has a course voucher worth up to $2,400. Software AG has an Amazon Echo Plus. IIBA had an Amazon Echo thing as well. UB Saunder Continuing Business Studies course voucher worth 995 Canadian dollars. iGraphics had an Apple Watch, and much, much more besides. So do check those booths out. Check all of the sponsors booths out as well. So that reaches the very, very end of this broadcast. We are back at 2:45 Pacific time, and we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and business agility. And I'm told it's Cybersecurity Week, either now or soon. And of course, the IIBA have got their cybersecurity analysis certificate out. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. So see you back at 2:45 Pacific time. Enjoy the rest of the conference and hope to catch up with you very, very soon. Bye for now.